Seriously? Can a guy not even take a damn shower in peace on his own ship? Kale sputtered, fumbling uselessly with the spray controls as the sonic cleanser pulsed against his skin. Steam filled the cramped cubicle, but not enough to obscure the figure standing just inside the doorway. She wasn't human, not even close. Tall, slender, with skin that seemed to ripple with soft internal light, shifting from pearlescent white to pale lavender and back again. Delicate, dark markings like fractured obsidian flowed across her high cheekbones and down her neck, disappearing beneath a simple, form-fitting tunic of some deep blue, shimmering material he didn't recognize. What really snagged his attention, aside from the fact that she'd just walked in on him naked, were the fine, almost invisible filaments drifting like sea foam around her shoulders and spine, catching the dim light. And her eyes, large, dark, and tilted, holding an unnerving degree of calm, analytical curiosity. She tilted her head, the movement fluid and unsettlingly graceful. Her gaze wasn't on his face, oh no, it was aimed considerably lower. Your species' reproductive apparatus is externalized? Her voice was a low, resonant hum, galactic common tinged with an accent. He couldn't place. Clinical, like a biologist observing a particularly interesting fungus. Kale grabbed frantically for the thin towel hanging nearby, barely managing to drape it across his hips. Apparatus, lady, it's called a dick. And yes, it's externalized. Now would you mind externalizing yourself from my shower? The light under her skin flared briefly, a pulse of brighter amethyst. Amusement? Fascinating. The designation is blunt. She took a step closer, completely ignoring his request. Her dark eyes tracked the water sluicing off his chest. The integumentary hydrorepulsion seems standard, but the thermal signature is elevated. Are you distressed? Am I? Yes, I'm distressed. There's a strange alien woman watching me shower. Most carbon-based life forms find that distressing. He tightened his grip on the towel. She was now close enough that he could feel a faint warmth radiating from her, smell a scent like ozone and night-blooming flowers. It was disconcerting and, annoyingly, not unpleasant. Distress parameters vary, she murmured, her gaze flicking back down. One slender hand, fingers long and tipped with something dark that looked like polished stone, lifted hesitantly. The dick exhibits tumescence despite the distress indicators, a contradictory physiological response. May she, what? Kale recoiled, nearly slipping on the wet deck plating. May you what? No, absolutely not. Get out. Her brow furrowed, the glowing patterns shifting into complex swirls of indigo. My presence impedes your cleansing ritual? Apologies. Shipmaster Vorel never objected. Shipmaster Vorel, the previous owner of this rust bucket freighter, the Stray Comet? Vorel had been a hairy, four-armed Grindakian who probably shed in the shower. Vorel probably liked being watched, Kale snapped. Humans generally prefer privacy for apparatus maintenance. He gestured vaguely. She considered this, her head tilted again. The filaments around her shoulders stirred, brushing the damp air. Privacy, a shielding mechanism for vulnerability? She looked back at his towel-draped lap. Yet the signaling contradicts the shielding. She reached out again, faster this time, her fingers brushing the edge of the towel before Kale could react. He flinched back violently, the towel slipping. Hey! She didn't grab or invade, just let her fingertips hover near his hip bone, her gaze intensely focused on the reaction. The light under her skin pulsed again, this time a curious shade of turquoise. Tactile proximity intensifies the contradictory signals, increased heart rate, capillary dilation. Fascinating. Kale yanked the towel back into place, his face burning hotter than the sonic waves. Look, whoever you are, whatever you are, this conversation is over. Get out of my refresher. Ha! Her eyes finally lifted to meet his, and for the first time he saw something beyond clinical curiosity, a spark of something else. Playful? Challenging? I require assistance, she stated simply, the resonant hum of her voice sending an unexpected shiver down his spine despite the steam. And you, human Kale, appear to be the only functional unit currently available. Kale slammed the refresher door shut behind her, leaning against it, his heart still hammering. Functional unit? He was barely functional after that encounter. He quickly finished rinsing, shut off the sonic cleanser, and wrapped the towel securely around his waist before cracking the door open. She was still there, standing in the narrow corridor outside his cabin, examining the pitted bulkhead plating with the same intense focus she'd given his apparatus. Her bioluminescence cast shifting patterns on the dull metal. "Okay," he said, stepping out. "Assistance." "With what? And who the hell are you? How did you even get on board?" She turned, her movements unnervingly smooth. The filaments around her drifted, seeming to taste the recycled air. "I am Zyra, of the Xylos. I interfaced with the Stray Comet's tertiary access panel during your docking procedure at Port Xantis. You hacked my ship?" Kale stared. The security on that panel was basic, sure, but still interfaced, she corrected gently. Her skin glowed a soft gold, warmer than before. "My people commune with energy signatures. Your vessel projected availability." Availability? It projected desperation and leaky plasma conduits? He ran a hand through his damp hair. "Why my ship?" Xantis was crawling with high-spec cruisers. They projected rigidity, control, threat. Zyra's gaze swept over him again, lingering for a moment on the towel before meeting his eyes. "Your vessel projected manageable chaos and solitude." Solitude, yeah, he had that in spades. Ever since. He pushed the thought away. "Look, Zyra of the Xylos, stowaways usually end up spaced or sold depending on my mood and credit balance." It was a bluff. Mostly. Zyra didn't react, her expression unreadable, though the light under her skin deepened. Oh, a richer amber. "Spaced. Sold. Unacceptable outcomes. I require transport away from this sector. There are entities searching." Entities? Kale's internal alarms, already buzzing from the shower incident, went on high alert. "What kind of entities?" "Collectors," she said, the word clipped. The light in her skin flickered, shadows momentarily darkening the glowing patterns. "They harvest unique biosignatures. My species is rare? Rare meant valuable. Valuable meant dangerous people wanting the valuable thing. Exactly the kind of trouble Kale spent his life trying to avoid." "Harvest?" he repeated, a knot tightening in his stomach. "You mean slavers? Of a specialized sort. They do not seek labor." Her gaze held his, intense and serious. "They seek essence, resonance, life planners." "Great, not just slavers, but metaphysical vampires or something." "And they're after you specifically?" Zyra nodded, a ripple of deep violet washing over her shoulders. "My resonance signature is distinct, potent." She took a step closer, invading his personal space again. He could feel that strange warmth, smell that ozone floral scent. Her filaments stirred, brushing against his bare arm. It felt like static electricity and silk. He instinctive. Really pulled back, she paused, her dark eyes studying his reaction. "Your aversion to proximity is strong. Is it a species trait or specific to your damage?" "My damage?" Kale bristled. "Okay, first, stay out of my personal space. Second, don't psychoanalyze me. Third, why should I help you? Harboring a fugitive, especially one valuable to nasty collectors, is a quick way to get my functional unit disassembled." Zyra tilted her head. "You require compensation?" "Damn right I require compensation. Fuel isn't free, and neither is risking my neck." "I possess limited transferable currency," she admitted, "but I offer expertise. My ability to sense energy patterns extends beyond vessel interfaces. I can detect hazards, navigational anomalies, concealed threats. Your primary sensor array has a harmonic imbalance, easily corrected if allowed access." Kale frowned. She wasn't wrong. The long-range scanner had been glitchy since that run-in with the scrap pirates near Kepler 186F. "You can fix my scanner just by sensing it and applying precise resonant adjustments." Her hand lifted again, not towards him this time, but towards the corridor wall, fingers tracing the conduits hidden beneath. A faint turquoise glow emanated from her fingertips, pulsing in time with the ship's barely audible hum. Everything possesses a resonance. Ships, stars, living beings. Her eyes met his again. Even contradictory, distressed humans. They ended up in the cockpit, which wasn't much bigger than the refresher. Zyra moved with that unsettling grace, her fingers drifting over the main console, occasionally touching a screen or a physical switch. Kale stood behind her, arms crossed, towels still firmly in place, feeling intensely awkward and underdressed. The air hummed faintly around her, and the lights on the console seemed to brighten subtly as she passed her hands over them. "The harmonic imbalance originates here," she murmured, tapping a secondary diagnostic screen Kale rarely bothered with. Symbols he didn't recognize flickered across it before resolving into standard galactic energy flow charts. A microfracture in the focusing crystal, likely stress-induced. Stress-induced? The ship got stressed? Kale scoffed. Resonant feedback from proximate high-energy events, Zyra corrected without looking back. Scrap pirates, you said. Her filaments stirred, catching the light from the monitors. Their weapon regenerates chaotic energy signatures. Your vessel absorbed residual dissonance. She placed her palms flat on the console surface adjacent to the scanner controls. The turquoise light flowed from her hands, sinking into the machine. The slight, almost subliminal vibration Kale always felt through the deck plates intensified, shifted pitch, then smoothed out into a clean, steady hum. On the screen, the jagged energy graph flattened into a perfect sine wave. Correction implemented, Zyra announced. Withdrawing her hands, the glow faded. Kale stared at the screen, then at her. You just fixed it by touching it? I encouraged the crystal lattice to realign its resonant frequency, she explained patiently, as if it were the simplest thing in the galaxy. Restored its harmony. She turned to face him, the confined space forcing them into close proximity again. He could see the intricate detail in her shifting skin patterns, the way the light seemed to breathe beneath the surface. Satisfactory compensation? He had to admit, a fully functional long-range scanner was worth a lot, more than he could afford to pay for repairs right now, but it didn't solve the core problem. It's a start, he conceded, trying to sound grudging, but it doesn't change. The fact that having you here puts a massive target on this ship, on me. The risk is calculated, Zyra said. Her gaze was direct, unwavering. Isolation provides limited protection. Symbiosis offers greater potential for survival. Symbiosis? Lady, we are not entering into some kind of creepy alien partnership. Is that not what compensation implies? An exchange of services for mutual benefit? Her lips curved slightly, a fleeting expression that might have been a smile. It made the dark markings on her cheeks stand out. You provide transport, I provide navigational enhancement and threat assessment. Symbiosis. Kale shifted his weight, acutely aware of the towel and the cool air on his bare legs. It sounds too simple when you put it like that. Complexity is often a human construct, Zyra observed. Survival is elemental. She reached out, her fingers tracing the edge of the pilot's seat Kale was leaning against. This vessel is an extension of you. Its aches are your ache. Its vulnerabilities, her gaze flicked to him, are yours? He hated how easily she seemed to read him, how she bypassed his carefully constructed sarcasm and went straight for the raw nerves. Stop doing that. Doing what? The picture of innocence? Except for the knowing glint in her dark eyes and the faint lavender glow pulsing under her skin. The analyzing thing. The picking apart my neuroses thing. I'm observing, she corrected. Learning your operational parameters, essential for effective symbiosis. She brushed a stray strand of dark hair from her forehead, the movement drawing his eyes to the delicate curve of her ear, which was subtly pointed and seemed to have faint, glowing veins. For instance, she continued, her voice dropping slightly, becoming more resonant, I observe that, despite your verbal resistance and projected hostility, your biosignature indicates heightened awareness, interest, the same contradictory signals observed during the cleansing ritual. Kale felt heat rise in his cheeks again. I'm aware because there's a glowing alien woman who hacked my ship standing 2 inches from me after she caught me naked. Proximity is a factor, she acknowledged, that hint of a smile returning, but not the sole variable. She leaned in a fraction closer, the ozone and flowers scent intensifying. Your pulse just accelerated. Again. He could feel it, the stupid thudding in his chest. He took an involuntary step back, bumping against the bulkhead. Bound. Zyra, remember? She straightened, the light in her skin shifting to a cool silver. Boundaries noted. For now. She turned back to the console. Where are we going, human Kale? Before the collectors narrow their search grid. They needed to get out of this sector, fast. Kale plotted a course through the Serpent Nebula, a notorious stretch of space known for sensor ghosts, gravitational eddies, and generally making ships disappear. It was risky, but hopefully chaotic enough to mask their trail from Zyra's collectors. Strap in, he said, settling into the pilot's seat, finally dressed in worn cargo pants and a synth-weave shirt. He felt marginally less exposed, though Zyra's presence beside him in the co-pilot's chair still felt like a low-grade electric current running through the cockpit. She mirrored his movements, securing the crash webbing with an elegant efficiency that suggested she was no stranger to spacecraft. As the stray comet slipped into the swirling, multicolored gases of the nebula, the ship began to buck and shudder. Alarms pinged softly on the console. Gravitational shear ahead, Kale muttered, hands tight on the controls adjusting thruster output. Standard nebula interference, Zyra observed calmly. Her eyes closed. The filaments around her shoulders were spread wide, glowing faintly. There is something else. A localized energy distortion, port side, bearing 030. Kale checked the newly repaired scanner. It showed nothing but swirling gas clouds and sensor static. Scanner's clear. Your scanner detects electromagnetic phenomena, she said, eyes still closed. I sense resonance, a vessel attempting passive concealment. Kail's blood ran cold. Collectors? Already? How close? Approximately 12,000 clicks? Maintaining speed and vector parallel to ours. They are shielded, but their drive core resonates discordantly. Her head tilted. They are aware of us? Scrap. Kail swore, pushing the engines harder, weaving the freighter through tendrils of glowing turquoise and deep violet gas. The ship groaned in protest. Can you get a lock on them? Any kind of signature? Negative. Their shielding is sophisticated, designed to absorb and scatter sensor pings. Zyra opened her eyes, the dark irises seeming to drink in the swirling nebula outside. But their intent resonates clearly. Predatory. A proximity alert blared. Something small and fast closing from behind. Not the main ship. Zyra sensed, but something. NG launched from it. Probe or fighter? Kale gritted his teeth, yanking the ship into a sharp dive, scraping past a chunk of floating ice crystal the size of his cabin. Feels like a tether, Zyra said, her voice tight. The light under her skin pulsed erratically, shifting between amber warning and violet tension. A grappling drone, designed to latch on and transmit location. Not on my ship, Kale growled. He cut the main drive, letting inertia carry them, then spun the comet on its axis, firing maneuvering thrusters in a tight, controlled burst. He caught a glimpse of the drone, sleek, black, insect-like as it shot past their previous position. He slammed the main drive back online, fishtailing through a particularly dense cloud of crimson gas. Did we lose it? He asked, eyes glued to the tactical display, which remained stubbornly blank. Zyra had one hand pressed against the transparisteel viewport, the other against the console. Her skin was now a flickering pattern of deep blue and silver. It adjusts, anticipates, she pointed. There, lower quadrant, he saw it, a flicker of movement against the background stars, angling back towards them. Persistent little bastard. He dodged again, the G-forces pressing him into the seat. Zyra barely seemed to notice, her focus absolute. It pulses a targeting solution, narrow beam. They are locking onto my biosignature. Can you mask it, dampen it somehow? My natural resonance is difficult to conceal entirely, she admitted, but perhaps disrupt? Her eyes met his, intense and challenging. Requires proximity, direct energy transfer. Kale didn't hesitate. The alternative was letting that drone tag them. Do it. Zyra unbuckled her harness in one fluid motion. The ship lurched as Kale dodged another gravitational pocket, throwing her off balance. She stumbled against him, her hands landing on his shoulders to steady herself. For a fraction of a second, they were chest to chest, her strange warmth radiating through his shirt, the scent of ozone and flowers filling his senses. Her eyes, wide and dark, were inches from his. The air crackled. Then she pushed away, kneeling beside his command chair, one hand hovering over the auxiliary power conduit, the other reaching towards him. "This may feel intrusive," she warned. Her fingers, cool and tipped with that dark, stony material, touched the side of his neck, right over his pulse point. An electric jolt shot through him, sharp and stunning. It wasn't painful, exactly, but it was overwhelming, like mainlining pure energy. His vision swam. He felt her presence not just beside him, but inside him, a cool, resonant hum merging with his own biosignature. He could almost feel her sifting through his energy, looking for something. The light under her skin blazed, a brilliant turquoise that reflected in his wide eyes. Outside, the drone faltered, its trajectory suddenly erratic. "Disrupting the lock?" Zyra murmured, her voice sounding distant, echoing inside his head. "Scrambling the signature with yours?" The contact lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. When she pulled her hand away, Kale gasped, slumping back in his seat, feeling strangely hollowed out, yet vibrantly alive. The drone tumbled away, apparently losing its target lock, and vanished back into the nebula's mists. Zyra settled back into her seat, buckling herself in, her breathing slightly faster than before. The intense glow faded, leaving her skin a pale, shimmering silver. She didn't look at him, but the tips of her pointed ears were flushed a faint rose color. The cockpit felt suddenly too small, charged with an energy that had nothing to do with the nebula or the ship's engines. They found Tempora, Refuge on Xylos Prime's shattered moon, landing the stray comet in a vast, echoing cavern system honeycombed beneath the desolate surface. Ancient ruins, remnants of a forgotten outpost, littered the dusty floor. The air was thin but breathable, recycled by failing atmospheric processors left over from whoever built this place millennia ago. Silence pressed in, broken only by the ship's cooling systems and the faint drip of condensation somewhere in the darkness. The tension that had crackled between them in the cockpit after Zyra's disruption hadn't dissipated. It had settled, thick and watchful, like the moon dust outside. Kale busied himself running pointless diagnostics, needing something to do with his hands. Zyra sat motionless on a low, crumbling wall near the ship's ramp, gazing out into the cavern's gloom. Her inner light a soft, steady pulse of lavender. Her earlier clinical curiosity seemed to have been replaced by a quiet introspection. Or maybe she was just tired. That energy transfer thing looked like it took a lot out of her. "So..." Kale finally broke the silence, his voice sounding unnaturally loud. "Collectors, resonance hunters, biosignature locks? Anything else I should know about the people trying to turn you into a harvested life planner?" Zyra turned her head slowly, her dark eyes reflecting the dim emergency lights from the ship. "They are relentless, patient. They serve a higher authority, one that covets unique energetic potentials." Sounds vague and menacing. He leaned against the ship's hull, crossing his arms. "Why you? You said your signature was potent. How potent?" She hesitated, the light under her skin swirling like smoke. "My lineage carries a specific harmonic convergence, a key of sorts, to manipulate resonant fields on a scale beyond individual interaction. Manipulation, key, higher authority." It sounded like galaxy-shaking stuff, the kind of trouble that got small-time freighter pilots vaporized without a second thought. And letting them get their hands on you would be bad? Catastrophic, she stated simply, the word hanging heavy in the stale air. "For many systems, including potentially your own soul." Great. Now the fate of Earth was involved. Kale scrubbed a hand over his face. "Why didn't you lead with that? Would it have altered your initial cost-benefit analysis?" Zyra asked, a flicker of something irony in her tone. "Your species prioritizes immediate survival metrics." He couldn't argue. That he'd been ready to dump her at the nearest asteroid bar before she fixed his scanner. And before he pushed away from the hull, pacing restlessly. Okay, so big stakes, nasty bad guys. What's the plan? We can't hide out on deserted moons forever." "The plan," Zyra said, rising fluidly from the wall, "was to reach the Veil Nebula. There are allies there, or sanctuary at least." "The Veil? That's halfway across the outer rim. We barely have enough fuel to make it to the next system, let alone finance a trip like that." He stopped pacing, facing her. And those collectors will be scanning every jump signature out of the Serpent Nebula. They know we're here somewhere. Zyra moved closer, her steps silent on the dusty floor. Which is why direct flight is unwise. We need resources, credits, fuel. She tilted her head, her gaze sharp. You are a scavenger, are you not, human Kale? This moon, it resonates with forgotten technology, potential salvage. He followed her gaze towards the deeper shadows of the cavern, where collapsed structures hinted at more extensive ruins. He hadn't considered salvaging here. The place felt dead, picked clean centuries ago. But Zyra sensed things he couldn't. Maybe he can't. Seeded. But exploring ruins takes time we might not have. A calculated risk, she countered, as was accepting my presence on your vessel. She was standing close again, close enough for him to feel that faint warmth, smell the ozone floral scent, close enough to see the fatigue shadowing her eyes, despite her calm demeanor. You expended significant energy disrupting that drone's lock, he said, the words coming out rougher than he intended. Was it linked to me? Did it cost you? The light in her skin pulsed, a soft rose color spreading across her cheekbones. There was an exchange, a temporary blending of resonant frequencies, necessary but intense. Her eyes met his, dark and unreadable. Your life platter is unexpectedly vibrant, chaotic but strong. He felt that jolt again, an echo of her touch on his neck. He had the sudden, insane urge to reach out, to touch her glowing skin, to see if it felt as smooth and warm as it looked, to see if that rose flush would deepen. He clenched his fists instead. Right, vibrant, chaotic, and currently broke. Let's go see if this forgotten technology wants to become fuel credits. He turned abruptly towards the deeper ruins, needing distance. Zyra fell into step beside him, her presence a constant, humming awareness at the edge of his senses. The air grew cooler as they moved away from the ship, the silence more profound. Suddenly, Zyra stopped, her head snapping up, filaments flaring. Wait! Kale froze. What is it? Collectors? No, she whispered, her eyes wide, fixed on something in the oppressive darkness ahead. Resonance. But not technological, biological, and it's hunting. A low growl echoed from the darkness, reverberating through the cavern. It wasn't mechanical, it was guttural, primal. Kale instinctively drew the plasma pistol holstered at his thigh, flicking off the safety. What kind of biological? He whispered, scanning the shadows. Zyra's skin was shifting rapidly now, waves of electric blue chasing urgent pulses of crimson. Subterranean predator, apex, it senses biosignatures, warmth, movement. Her filaments were rigid, pointing towards a cluster of fallen pillars 50 meters ahead. It's large, multiple limbs, and hungry. Another growl. Closer this time, accompanied by the scraping sound of claws on rock. Kale backed up slowly towards a narrow crevice between two massive carved stones. Okay, new plan. Forget the salvage. Back to the ship. Now. Agreed, Zyra breathed, her eyes darting nervously. She stayed close, her shoulder occasionally brushing his as they retreated. The scraping grew louder, faster. A hulking shape detached itself from the shadows near the pillars, a nightmarish blend of insectoid and reptilian features, low-slung with far too many legs ending in wicked-looking talons, and rows of gleaming light-sensitive eyes clustered above powerful jaws. It let out a chittering screech and charged. Move! Kale yelled, shoving Zyra towards the crevice and firing a warning shot over the creature's head. The plasma bolt sizzled against the cavern ceiling, showering sparks, but the beast barely flinched. It was focused entirely on them, its prey. They scrambled into the narrow opening just as the creature slammed against the outer rock face, its claws scrabbling for purchase. The space was tight, pressing them shoulder to shoulder, chest to back. Kale could feel the rapid rise and fall of Zyra's breathing against his back, the electric hum of her heightened state vibrating through the points of contact. The creature screeched again, its foul breath washing over them. Any bright ideas? Kale hissed, keeping his pistol aimed at the opening. Its sensory organs are primarily thermal and resona. NT? Zyra said, her voice strained. She pressed closer against him, her hands flat against the rock on either side of his head. The light from her skin intensified dramatically, pulsing a blinding white gold. I can try to overload them, a focused, resonant pulse. Like you did with the drone? Won't that drain you again? More direct, more draining, but necessary. Her voice was tight with effort. He could feel the energy building in her, a palpable thrum against his back. Hold still, and braced. He braced, pressing himself against the rock face. The creature thrust a clawed limb into the crevice, blindly seeking purchase. Kale fired, shearing off the tip of a talon in a spray of ichor. The beast roared in pain and fury, redoubling its efforts to get at them. Then, Zyra unleashed her power. It wasn't like the subtle energy transfer before. This was raw, uncontained force erupting from her, washing through Kale in a wave of heat and pure sonic vibration. The white gold light flared, momentarily blinding him. The creature outside shrieked, a high-pitched sound of agony and confusion, and scrabbled backwards, crashing into the cavern floor. Kale blinked spots from his eyes, turning his head to look at Zyra. She was slumped against rock wall, her eyes closed, the brilliant light fading rapidly, leaving her skin dull, almost grayish, the intricate patterns barely visible. Her filaments drooped lifelessly. She was gasping for breath. Zyra, he reached out, grabbing her arm to steady her. Her skin felt cool, clammy. Did it work? She nodded weakly, leaning heavily against him. It's disoriented, overloaded. It will retreat. For now. The scraping sounds faded into the distance, replaced once more by the oppressive silence. Relief washed over Kale, quickly followed by concern. Zyra looked utterly depleted. Okay, he said softly, his hand still on her arm. Okay, let's get you back to the ship. He started to ease them out of the crevice, supporting her weight. She stumbled, her legs unsteady. Without thinking, Kale scooped her up into his arms. She was surprisingly light, but felt fragile, drained. Her head lolled against his shoulder, her cheek brushing his neck. A faint spark, an echo of her usual energy, tingled against his skin. She murmured something in her own language, a soft melodic sound. Then, in common, so low he almost didn't hear it, "Your hold is secure." He tightened his grip instinctively, acutely aware of her body pressed against him. Our strange vulnerability, the earlier tension, the fear, the adrenaline, it all coalesced into something else, something sharp and urgent. He carried her back towards the faint lights of the stray comet, his own heart pounding a chaotic rhythm against his ribs. The predator might be gone, but the danger felt far from over. He carried her onto the ship, bypassing the cargo hold and heading straight for his own cramped cabin. It was the only place with a proper bed, even if it was just a fold-down bunk. He gently laid her down, noting the continued lack of light beneath her skin, the shallow breathing. She looked diminished, fragile, a stark contrast to the vibrant, challenging alien who'd invaded his shower seemingly a lifetime ago. "How do I help you?" he asked, kneeling beside the bunk. "Food? Water? Some kind of Xylosian energy bar?" A faint smile touched her lips, barely visible in the dim light. "Rest, mostly, and resonance. Proximity helps. Grounding." She reached out a trembling hand, her fingers brushing his. Her skin was cool to the touch. "Stay?" The request was simple, hesitant, completely unlike her usual directness. It hit Kale harder than any demand would have. He thought of the collectors, the cavern predator, the sheer alienness of her, the trouble she represented. Then he thought of her courage, the way she'd faced down that drone, how she'd just saved both their asses at great personal cost. He thought of the jolt her touch sent through him, the unwanted fascination she sparked. Staying was complicated. Leaving her alone felt impossible. "Yeah," he said, his voice rough. "Yeah, I'll stay." He settled on the edge of the bunk, careful not to jostle her. Her fingers curled weakly around his. He could feel a faint, thread-like pulse of energy from her, seeking connection, warmth. Hesitantly, he covered her hand with his other one. Her skin was incredibly smooth, the dark, stone-like tips of her nails cool against his palm. They sat in silence for a long time, the only sounds the hum of the ship and their quiet breathing. Gradually, a faint luminescence returned to Zyra's skin, starting around their joined hands, a soft, pale gold that slowly spread, chasing away the grayish pallor. Her breathing deepened, becoming more regular. The filaments around her shoulders stirred feebly, like seaweed touched by a gentle current. Kale watched the light return, fascinated. It was like watching life bloom and fast forward. He felt a strange sense of protetiness, sharp and unexpected. He wanted to shield this fragile light, keep the darkness at bay. He realized he was tracing the faint, intricate patterns on the back of her hand with his thumb. He stopped abruptly, but Zyra made a soft sound, a low hum of contentment, and pressed her hand more firmly against his. So he continued, the repetitive motion strangely soothing to both of them. After a while, her eyes fluttered open. They seemed clearer now, the deep violet depths regaining their focus. She looked at their joined hands, then up at his face. The energy transfer. Your resonance signature is imprinted now, she murmured, her voice stronger, more deeply than before. Imprinted? He wasn't sure he liked the sound of that. What does that mean? It means connection, recognition, on a resonant level. Her thumb moved, stroking the side of his hand. The light in her skin brightened, shifting towards that alluring rose color. It makes concealment more difficult, but targeting too. They will sense you with me. Great. Double the target. He tried for sarcasm, but it fell flat. The proximity, the shared danger, the undeniable intimacy of this moment, it was stripping away his defenses. Perhaps, she conceded. Or it Tez a harmonic shield, a dissonance they cannot easily parse. Her gaze held his, unwavering. You anchored me, human Kale. When the energy depleted, I felt your resonance. Steady, strong. He felt anything but steady. His heart was doing that stupid, accelerated rhythm again. He looked down at her hand in his, at the soft light pulsing beneath her skin. He thought of her clinical curiosity in the shower, her challenging banter, her fierce power, and now, this quiet vulnerability. She was a walking contradiction, an enigma wrapped in glowing skin, and he was utterly captivated. He leaned closer. Drawn by an impulse, he didn't bother fighting anymore. You feel a bit steadier now, he asked softly. Her lips curved in a genuine smile this time, slow and radiant. It transformed her face, making her breathtakingly beautiful. Considerably. The air between them thickened, charged with unspoken questions and undeniable answers. He saw his own conflicted desire mirrored in the depths of her alien eyes. The rational part of his brain screamed warnings about collectors and complications and getting in too deep. But the rest of him, the part that felt vibrantly alive when she was near, the part that responded to her strange energy with a resonance of its own, didn't care. He lowered his head, his lips hovering just above hers. Good, he whispered, and then he kissed her. The kiss was tentative at first, a mere brushing of lips, exploring unfamiliar territory. Her lips were soft, cooler than his, but warmed instantly under his touch. He felt a jolt, that now familiar energy signature, but softer this time, inquisitive rather than forceful. Then she responded, a soft sigh escaping her as she tilted her head, deepening the kiss. It wasn't like kissing a human. There was an underlying thrum, a subtle resonance that seemed to vibrate from her lips into his, sending shivers down his spine. Her free hand came up, fingers tracing the line of his jaw, her touch sending sparks across his skin. The light under her skin intensified, shifting from rose to a deep, pulsing crimson, bathing the small cabin in a warm, intimate glow. Kale pulled back slightly, breathless, needing to see. Her eyes were heavy-lidded, her lips slightly parted, flushed with color. The dark markings on her face seemed starker, more alluring against the crimson light. The filaments around her shoulders swayed gently, brushing against his cheek like phantom touches. Your interaction protocols are, direct, she murmured, her voice husky. Learn from the best, he countered, his thumb stroking her cheekbone. Her skin felt like warm silk. He leaned in again, kissing her more deeply this time, tasting the faint ozone floral scent on her tongue. His hand slid from her face, down the slender column of her neck, fingers brushing the delicate, glowing veins. She arched slightly against him, a low hum vibrating in her chest. He moved his hand lower, over the unfamiliar fabric of her tunic, mapping the curve of her shoulder, the swell of her breast. She stiffened for a fraction of a second, then relaxed, pressing herself into his touch. Her own hand slid under his shirt, fingers splayed against the bare skin of his back. Her touch was electric, raising goosebumps despite the warmth building between them. He broke the kiss, resting his forehead against hers, trying to catch his breath. The crimson light pulsed around them, mirroring the frantic beat of his heart. This is, he started, unsure what he wanted to say. Crazy? Inevitable? Dangerous? Zyra finished the thought, her voice a low thrum against his skin. Necessary, she shifted on the bunk, pulling him down towards her. He went willingly, settling beside her, half propped on Hyden's elbow. Her eyes searched his face, intense and serious despite the passion flushing her skin. Human Kale, this joining for my people, it creates a bond, a resonant attunement. Irreversible. He met her gaze, seeing the vulnerability beneath the intensity. She wasn't just talking about physical intimacy, she was talking about something deeper, something permanent in her culture. His usual instinct would be to run screaming in the opposite direction. Commitment? Irreversible bonds? No thanks. But looking at Zyra, feeling the undeniable current humming between them, the thought of running felt wrong, empty. Okay, he said softly, surprising himself with his own certainty. Irreversible. A slow smile spread across her face, full of relief and something else. Possessiveness? She reached up, her fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him down for another kiss, fierce and demanding this time. Clothes became an impediment, discarded quickly, clumsily, in the confined space. Her tunic dissolved into shimmering dust at her touch, revealing a body that was both alien and breathtakingly beautiful. Her skin glowed with that deep crimson light, the intricate patterns shifting and swirling with her arousal. The filaments along her spine else with brighter light, sensitive to his touch. Exploring her body was a journey of discovery, the smooth planes, the unexpected curves, the way her skin heated and pulsed beneath his fingers. She explored him with equal curiosity and fascination, her cool hands tracing his muscles, learning his textures, her touch sometimes clinical, sometimes purely sensual, always eliciting shivers of response. When they finally came together, it was explosive, emerging not just of bodies but of the energies they both seemed acutely aware of. He felt her resonance pour into him, overwhelming his senses, a wave of pure sensation, light, sound, energy that was almost too much to bear. It wasn't just friction and release, it felt like connection, like two separate energy fields finding a harmonic frequency, amplifying each other, creating something new. Her climax was a silent, radiant pulse of white gold light that washed outwards from her, leaving him momentarily blind and breathless, feeling utterly connected to her on a level he hadn't known existed. Afterwards, they lay tangled together on the narrow bunk, the crimson glow softening back to a warm, steady gold. Kale held her close, her head pillowed on his chest, one of her slender EGs thrown over his. Her filaments brushed rhythmically against his side with each breath she took. The silence wasn't awkward, it was companionable, sated. He felt calm, centered in a way he hadn't felt in years. The chaos inside him seemed to have found a counterpoint in her resonant presence. So, he murmured into her hair, which felt surprisingly soft like fine spun silk. Resonant attunement. Does this mean I start glowing now? She chuckled, a low musical sound that vibrated against his ribs. Unlikely. Your species' bioluminescence capabilities are negligible. She tilted her head back to look at him, her dark eyes soft. But our energy fields are now familiar, intertwined. She traced a pattern on his chest with one long finger. A faint echo of light, turquoise and fleeting, followed her touch on his skin before fading. See? He stared at the fading trace, astonished. Whoa! Okay, didn't expect that. There will be residual effects, she said, a hint of playful warning in her voice. Mutual awareness, sensitivity to proximity, emotional resonance? He raised an eyebrow. So you're going to know every time I get annoyed about the leaky coolant system? Potentially, she admitted, her lips sealed. Irving. And you may find yourself unusually sensitive to my moods. He considered this. Her moods seemed to range from clinical curiosity to fierce protectiveness to radiant passion, often signaled by her shifting glow. Maybe sensing that wouldn't be so bad. Better than guessing, anyway. And this attunement, he asked, his voice more serious, does it make you safer from the collectors? Her expression sobered, the golden light dimming slightly. It makes us a more complex target, harder to isolate, harder to capture individually. They seek singular, pure resonance signatures. Ours is now blended, harmonized in a way. She shifted, propping herself up on an elbow to look him directly in the eye. But it also makes you a target, Kale. They will sense your connection to me. They may try to use you to reach me. The thought sent a chill through him, but it wasn't fear for himself. It was fear for her. The idea of anyone using him to hurt Zyra ignited a cold fury deep inside. Let them try, he growled, his hand tightening possessively on her hip. Her eyes widened slightly, a flicker of surprise, followed by a wave of warm amber light washing over her skin. She leaned down, pressing a soft kiss to his lips. Your protective instincts are strong. Guess they're part of my chaotic but strong life planner, he quipped. But the feeling was genuine. He'd spent years looking out only for himself, keeping everyone at arm's length. Now the thought of protecting Zyra felt as natural as breathing. She settled back against him, sighing contentedly. We still need to reach the Veil Nebula. Yeah. He looked around the cramped cabin, at the familiar dents and scuffs of his solitary existence. It didn't feel quite so solitary anymore. Which means we need credits. Which means, unfortunately, scavenging those ruins might still be necessary. He felt her subtle shift in energy, a new alertness. The predator? We'll be more careful this time. Stick together. And maybe, he added, tapping her lightly on the nose, you can give it another resonant headache if it shows up again. Perhaps, she agreed, though I would prefer not to deplete myself so thoroughly again. The recovery period is inconvenient. She snuggled closer, her hand resting flat over his heart. He could feel the faint, rhythmic thrum of her energy mingling with his own heartbeat. Your pulse is steady now, she observed. Less contradictory. He smiled, stroking her back, feeling the delicate ridges of her spine beneath her smooth skin. Maybe I'm just getting used to having a glowing alien symbiote in my life. Symbiote implies mutualism, she corrected gently, her voice laced with sleepy amusement, which I believe we have now thoroughly established. He chuckled, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. Yeah, he supposed they had. Mutualism, attunement, connection, whatever it was, lying here with Zyra in his arms. The vast, dangerous galaxy outside felt, unexpectedly, irrevocably, right. They moved through the deeper ruins like wraiths, sticking to the shadows, senses heightened. Kale kept his plasma pistol ready while Zyra scanned their surroundings not just with her eyes, but with that unnerving, resonant sense of hers. The golden glow of her skin was muted now, a conscious effort to remain inconspicuous, but Kale found he could almost feel her presence beside him. A warm, steady hum at the edge of his awareness, one of the residual effects she'd mentioned. They found it in a collapsed chamber, half buried under rubble, a compact energy core, ancient but intact, humming faintly with dormant power. Its design was unfamiliar, elegant, clearly not human or any known species tech Kale recognized. This is it. Zyra breathed, kneeling beside the device. Her filaments stirred, tasting the air around the core. Old Republic era? Pre-collapse, maybe? The resonance is clean, potent. Kale ran a diagnostic scanner over it. The readings were off the charts. This thing could power a small moon base. Or, he grinned, fetch enough credits to get us to the Veil Nebula and maybe even upgrade the comet's shields. Extracting it was painstaking work. They had to clear the debris carefully, mindful of triggering further collapse, all while keeping an ear out for returning multi-limbed horrors. Zyra proved invaluable, sensing structural weaknesses in the rock above them, guiding Kale's hands as he disconnected the core from its crumbling conduits. Her touch sometimes brushing his arm, sometimes resting briefly on his back as she pointed something out, sent tiny sparks along his nerves, a constant reminder of their new intimacy. There was a shared focus, an easy rhythm to their work that felt miles away from their chaotic first encounters. The banter was still there, but softer now, laced with affection. Careful with that coupling, she murmured as he wrestled with a particularly stubborn connection. It resonates with fragility. Story of my life, Kale grunted, easing off the pressure. Don't be self-deprecating, she chided gently. Your resonance is resilient, not fragile. He glanced at her, saw the sincerity in her eyes, and felt an unfamiliar warmth spread through his chest. They finally freed the core, a heavy cylinder about a meter long, pulsing with contained energy. Getting it back to the ship required teamwork, maneuvering the awkward weight through narrow passages and over treacherous piles of rubble. At one point, Kale stumbled, the core slipping from his grasp. Before it could hit the ground, Zyra was there, catching it with impossible speed and strength. Her body braced, her skin flaring briefly with exertion. "Close call," she said, her breath misting slightly in the cool air. He stared at her, impressed and slightly aroused by her swift competence. "Nice save." He reached out, putting his hand over hers on the core. "My turn to anchor you?" A smile touched her lips. "Accepted." They carried it the rest of the way together, shoulder to shoulder, the shared effort forging another small link in the chain of their connection. Back in the Stray Comet's cargo hold, they secured the energy core carefully. Relief washed over Cavale. They had the means now. They could get away. "Phase 1 complete," he said, wiping dust and grime from his forehead. "Now we just need to find a buyer who isn't too curious about where we got a priceless antique power core." Zyra leaned against the bulkhead, watching him. The golden light in her skin was brighter now, relaxed. "Port Nix, on the asteroid belt K7. It's frequented by those who value discretion. A den of smugglers and information brokers? Sounds perfect." He moved towards her, stopping just inches away. He reached out, gently brushing a smudge of dust from her cheekbone. "You did good, Zyra." "We did good," she corrected softly, her eyes holding his. The air between them hummed with unspoken energy. The practical need for escape was momentarily forgotten, eclipsed by the pull between them. He leaned in, capturing her lips in a kiss that was less about frantic passion and more about deepening connection, a reaffirmation of the bond forged in the cabin. Her arms went around his neck, pulling him closer, her body molding against his. The kiss lingered, slow and thorough, a silent conversation confirming everything that had changed between them. Suddenly, a klaxon blared through the ship. The proximity alert. Red lights flashed, bathing the cargo hold in urgent pulses. Kale broke the kiss, swearing under his breath. "Scrap, what now?" He sprinted for the cockpit, Zyra close behind him. The main view screen showed empty space, the cavern entrance, the desolate moonscape beyond. But the long-range scanner, Zyra's repaired scanner, was painting a contact, a big one, just entering orbit. "Is it them?" Kale asked, his hands flying over the controls, bringing the ship's systems fully online. Zyra stood beside him, her hand hovering over the console, her face grim, her skin shifting to a warning amber. "The resonance signature," she whispered, her voice tight with dread. "It is discordant, predatory, yes, Kale. It's the Collector's." The Collector's ship was massive, a predatory black wedge blotting out the stars, bristling with weapons emplacements and sensor arrays. It settled into a geosynchronous orbit directly above the cavern entrance, boxing them in. "Options?" Kale snapped, running desperate calculations. Fighting was suicide. The Stray Comet was a freighter, not a warship. Running seemed impossible. "They will deploy retrieval teams," Zyra said, her voice grim. The light under her skin was a stormy violet. "Boarding parties. They will attempt to disable the ship and extract me." "Not happening." Kale's voice was flat, cold. He looked at Zyra, at the fierce determination mixed with fear in her eyes. He thought of the bond between them, the resonant attunement she spoke of. He wouldn't let them take her. "Okay, new plan. They want you? They have to come through me. And this ship," he slammed his fist onto the console, activating the ship-wide comms. "All right, Comet, time to show these polished thugs what a little chaos can do." He started diverting power, rerouting energy from non-essential systems, overclocking the engines and the pathetic shield generator. Alarms screamed warnings he ignored. Zyra watched him, her expression unreadable for a moment, then a slow, fierce smile spread across her face. The violet light deepened, edged with determined crimson. "Resonance overload," she stated. "If they attempt a tractor beam or close-range scan, I can create a feedback loop, disrupt their systems temporarily." "How temporarily?" "Minutes, perhaps less. It will drain me again." "Then we make those minutes count," Kale grinned, a feral, reckless expression. "Get ready to play chicken with the warship." Small contacts detached from the collector vessel, boarding pods streaking towards the cavern entrance. Here, the Kale pushed the engines to maximum, the stray comet shuddering violently as it lifted off the cavern floor. He piloted them straight towards the narrow opening, dust and rock flying. They burst out into the harsh sunlight of the moon's surface just as the first boarding pods entered the cavern system below. "They'll be expecting us to run deep space," Kale muttered, pulling the ship into a sharp, surface-hugging trajectory, weaving between jagged peaks and shadowed craters. "We're going to give them a little surface-to-orbit surprise." The collector ship loomed above, enormous, menacing. Kale flew directly towards it. "Shields to full!" "Zyra, get ready!" "Ready," she confirmed, her hands hovering over the shield emitters, her skin blazing with contained energy. Proximity alerts shrieked as they closed the distance at insane speed. Weapons fire stitched across the moonscape behind them from the collector ship, trying to pin them down. Kale dodged, using the terrain for cover as much as possible. Then they were clear of the last peak, rising fast, aiming straight for the warship's underbelly. "They're scanning!" Zyra cried out, her body tensing. Tractor beam engaging. "Now, Zyra, hit them!" Zyra slammed her palms onto the console. An almost invisible wave of pure energy erupted from the stray comet, rippling outwards. Kale felt it as a physical jolt, a pressure wave washing through the cockpit. On the view screen, the collector ship flickered. Lights stuttered across its hull. The tractor beam effect vanished. Weapons fire ceased momentarily. "Direct hit!" Kale yelled, exhilarated. "How long?" "Minimal disruption. 30 seconds, maybe less." Zyra gasped, slumping slightly in her seat, the bright light fading from her skin, though not as drastically as before. Kale didn't waste a second. He wasn't trying to destroy the warship. He was trying to use its own mass against it. He fired maneuvering thrusters, angling the comet just enough to skim past the massive ship's forward section instead of colliding head-on. But he was close. Dangerously close. Close enough for his final trick. Activating the newly acquired energy core in the cargo hold, he rerouted its output, not into the ship's systems, but directly into the main comm antenna, pointed square at the collector vessel. "Hope you like ancient energy signatures, bastards." He pulsed a raw, focused beam of pre-collapse power straight into the warship's already disrupted sensor arrays. Alarms shrieked. On the collector ship, visible even from the comet's cockpit. Systems overloaded, sparks flew from damaged conduits, and a localized explosion blossomed on the warship's ventral side near their main sensor dish. Kale yanked the stray comet away, diving back towards the moon's surface as the collector ship listed, clearly damaged and momentarily blinded. "Did it work?" Zyra asked, her voice strained but hopeful. Kale watched the tactical display. The warship wasn't pursuing. It was venting atmosphere, dealing with internal damage. "Bought us some time," he said, grinning tiredly. He plotted a jump course, inputting the coordinates for Port Nix. "Let's get the hell out of here before they reboot." The jump drive whined, charging up. Kale risked a glance at Zyra. She was watching him, a complex mix of relief, exhaustion, and something else. Admiration? Affection? He reached over, taking her hand. Her skin was warm again, the golden light returning steadily. Their fingers interlaced. "Irreversible," he murmured, squeezing her hand. She squeezed back, her eyes shining. "Irreversible," she echoed. The stars elongated, shifted, and the stray comet, battered but free, leapt into hyperspace, leaving the crippled collector ship and the Sully moon behind, heading towards an uncertain future, together.